Patrick Zircher launches a bizarre, profanity-laden tirade of homophobic, racist, sexist, misogynist, body-shaming, sex-shaming, patronizing tweets, attacking women, calling them ugly, defaming people, calling them National Socialists, threatening violence. This isn't just an edgy teenager. This is a deeply disturbed grandfather suffering from Comicsgate derangement syndrome. Please do not report his tweets. People need to see how vile and hate-consumed he is. Yancey asks, how long until Zircher crowdfunds a book named Quantum Frog that is just 22 pages of screeching against alt-right garbage people? I'm sure he will make it enough to buy a new wheelbarrow. Patch Zircher says, I would never do anything remotely like Ethan's Cyberfrog. Not my thing. Not really anybody's thing, since he still hasn't made it. Also, the world's a big place, kid. There's more to it than kissing Ethan's ass. Betty Bright Eyes is the half of the Brightwiser team. They made a comic book called Red Rooster. Patch Zircher made a comment a few days ago about he hoped Ethan Van Sciver lost his drawing hand in a bizarre zoo accident or something. Betty Bright Eyes says, it's perfectly normal professional behavior to wish Ethan loses his ability to draw. How can any rational person think like this? Being deranged is not very cute or quirky when you are over 50, Zircher. He responds, at least I was cute once, girl. Remember, in his world, that's a sexist, patronizing, misogynist comment. And actually, if you reported enough of these tweets, he would eventually get permanently suspended from Twitter. But seriously, do not report his tweets. People need to see them. CNX says, my new policy is going to call these Comicsgate flakes whatever I feel like calling them, including Ethan Mein Kampfpfeifer. That's reprehensible to call someone that. He talks about Donald DeLay. He defames Donald DeLay. Is a guy who used to ask me for drawing advice, floundered. That word floundered is probably defamation. Grew bitter, then ran onto the Comicsgate crowd. Also, he has little squirrel balls. That's sex-shaming language, body-shaming language. That would probably also get him suspended. But when he says floundered, you're going to his reputation and his ability to get future earnings. When you defame someone's business prospects, it's a more serious class of defamation. He says, referring to Comicsgaters, if the lot of them were on fire, I wouldn't waste a piss to put them out. This is, I don't know, what 50, 60-year-old grandfather. Someone ought to tell them just how pathetic they are once in a while. They've had time to knock it off. They're committed to being little shit dingles. Grow a penis, Donald, for F's sake, you little squirreled bald suck-up. This is an adult. This is a professional. It's absolutely bizarre. Kurt Busiek chimes in, and you're having an awesome time working for DC, which Donald wants to get you fired from. Rah, DC, they're the ones for Patrick Z. DC won't fire anyone. Robbie the Rectum Rodriguez sexually harassed Ethan Van Sciver by sending him a picture of himself naked. If Ethan wanted to call the police, he could have reported it, but obviously he doesn't want to do anything to foul his relationship with DC, because DC is sending him checks every year. So DC, apparently anything is acceptable for DC. Spurging out about Captain Marvel. And this is a little bit ironic. He says, gotta say, if you can spew out racist, misogynist, anti-LGBT hate, but can't handle his tweets, you're a wimp. It's funny because Patrick Zircher is also spewing out misogynist, sexist, racist hatred, but somehow when it's from Patrick's side, it's not a problem. Carl George says something that should really perk up your ears. Donald is a piece of human garbage. Just seeing their interactions with a friend of mine was enough for me to stop thinking of them as human. Remember, use them pronouns just in case these a-holes flag you. To stop thinking of someone you're having a disagreement with as human? Then he makes two comments. He says, must be a circle jerk. Do you guys take turns, or is it a circle jerk? In their world, that's a homophobic statement. But think about what you're implying. It's homophobic. It's sexist. He also says, also, we should bare knuckle box for charity. That's a threat of violence. Comic artist Pro Secret says, Betty, please do a piece with me and Luke Skywalker robotic hand due to Patrick Zircher cutting it off. What are you going to do? Rainbow frog. I think that means gay frog rights now or something. Zircher says, I said I'd hoped you'd lose your hand in a bizarre zoo accident. Think how sick and twisted that is. The kind of thing your humor-impaired zombie cult is terrible at. I'm starting to think he has something organically wrong with him, like a brain chemistry imbalance. And then he argues with Nerd Wonder, your Nerd Wonder. She has a YouTube channel. I don't know if she's on it anymore. She says a lot of us, like the X-Men created as part of Comicsgate, created the X-Men dust. A whole lot of creators made the X-Men are not part of the Comicsgate, like very nearly all the other creators. What you're saying doesn't validate Comicsgate. Nerd Wonder is also a woman in Comicsgate. Patrick says, you know it's voluntary. They don't have to be like this. It's a choice. How can we have sympathy when they could just quit it? Quit what? Making independent comics? Is that a problem? Zircher's head is lodged firmly up his own rear end. Comicsgate started because some people tried to have a conversation about quality, story, and professionalism in comics, and they got shouted down and smeared as being alt-right, white supremacists, and Nazis. I'd be remiss if I didn't take my head out of my ass and mention when blocking Comicsgaters, I came across at least 100 white nationalists, not by my estimation, but self-professed. You would call an African-American in a MAGA hat a white nationalist. Anyone who disagrees with you is a nationalist. This is wonderful. He says, I fear there are a lot of people that have a surface amiability but reveal an ugliness underneath. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty accurate description. Logan says, if the logic is that one bad eggs spoiled the bunch, then surely Islamophobia is okay since ISIS exists. But it's not. Never okay to judge an entire group by a few members. That's just bad faith. Patch says, bringing Islam into this is whack. Dude, you're way too old to use that terminology. Comicsgate doesn't have a religious cultural importance to 1.5 billion people. Effing ludicrous. Well, there's a logical fallacy about appealing to such a large number. I forget what it's called. It does have cultural importance to a group of thousands. So it's a fair comparison. He says, what they'd like is clear by the targets they select. Fewer female leads, fewer minority leads, no gay leads, fewer women minorities make comments, less emotionally complex stories, more external conflicts, no social issues, embrace conservatism, a date. That's sex shaming. Fewer female leads, minority leads, gay leads, Iceman, I think he's talking about Iceman. Yeah, gay leads are fine. They have to be cool. That goes for female and minority. Yes, we need more people from, I don't know, all around the world. Less emotionally complex stories. Hey, write whatever sells. If you want to write social issues and emotionally, I don't know, we're talking about romance or stories, that's fine. There's room for complicated stories like that and social issues, but it has to sell. And when they say comics have always been political, well then apparently the people who were writing comics 30, 40 years ago were able to insert political issues in a less heavy-handed manner. They were clearly better writers. Anyway, what happened with Comicsgate is that it began with a-holes, and then they tried to legitimize these insults and attack. Who's attacking whom? And I mean, read your own tweets. You sound like a raving madman. He says, there's a liar. You don't know what you're talking about. I remember you guys calling women who made comics whores. No. Women I worked with, that's what involved me in this in the first place. You're garbage people. This is just nonsense. Or calling someone Caesar. A well-balanced person wouldn't do that. A balanced person would ask people not to call him that. Why? What is Caesar? Czar? King? Emperor? It's a joke. You look like you've never laughed at anything in your life. I ignore for long stretches, and then I'm stuck by the whiny stupidity of, again, who in their right man is upset over something like Captain Marvel? Not many people are upset. It made $1 billion, and it's a movie. Who cares? Talking about a movie. God, it is utterly pointless to talk about Comicsgate. It's like trying to tell a beagle not to bark. Then why do you keep bringing it up nonstop? I can tell you the answer to why Patch Zircher is bringing up Comicsgate nonstop. Serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters that are making him feel good. Every time he gets a little like or a click from talking about Comicsgate, if you look at his other tweets, he's not getting a lot of interaction. It's Comicsgate is the magic click for him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think.